Hello, and welcome back to another Minecraft Let's Play video with me, Elven Dragon, here in Feed the Beast Guys 2 on Shadowlands SMP. So last episode, we went and set up a bit of immersive engineering and got ourselves a Soul Surge powered set of hydroponic beds. And as you can hear, we now have the Soul Surge fully working. Turns out it doesn't work with the summoned wither from occultism, so we ended up taking our regular wither out of our jar, replacing our occultism one in there, since that should still give us any warden drops we may still need, and putting that warden in there. But today, it's finally time that we upgrade our storage with a computing system, and also, I just need to get out of this area because it's super loud. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and get our ME controller here built. That's going to be the main heart of our project, and we need a few machines in order to get there. So we need our inscriber and our charger. Those are pretty easy. But in order to get this, we are going to need some Certus quartz, which means we need some budding Certus quartz, which calls for budding black quartz geors. And to get that, we're going to need some black quartz, which means that we need to toss the grains of infinity in with some nether into a thing of lava. So we should have everything for that. I did go ahead and make an area to go and do all of those. So let's go ahead and turn off our magnet so we don't accidentally pick up the items that we need to toss in here before they react. There we go. And just go toss those in there, and apparently we were standing a little too close to it. Let's try that again. There we go. That worked. So I got 8 of these so we can have one for the actual geor that we're going to want, or at least presumably going to want, which looks like we need to explode it. And these are just grains of infinity and cobblestone. So that will be very easy to do. So we do that. That gets us everything that we need except the actual explosions, which should just be as easy as going in and making some TNT. I suppose we could probably just use a creeper, but this will be a lot more controlled and easier to manipulate. All right, so there we go. So we got our TNT, we have our crystal catalyst, we have our black quartz. We should be able to do both of those at once. And since this is protected, hopefully this won't blow everything up here. And there we go. Black crystal geor. We can go ahead and bring that over to our goo. Put that there. Keep the other one. I don't know where we're going to put this yet. Originally, I was going to put a bunch of these down in the other cave going off of the entrance to the occultism area. But we'll hold on to it because we'll probably need it at some point. And now all we have to do is just feed our goo and we should be able to get some Certus quartz. Now, I believe that should be able to process further. I believe I saw something in the JEI about that. We just have to wait for this to work. And there we go. We got one. Yes, there we go. Damage, and it's going to keep going until I think that'll actually go all the way to flawless if we let it. And the goo doesn't run out of fuel. So we'll let it go up as high as we can. And eventually we'll get some Certus quartz crystals. We'll be able to get our seeds. We'll be able to get fluix and go from there. But while that works, let's get our charger and our inscriber because we are going to need both of those, at least for the beginning part here. And these should pretty much be mostly iron and copper. So we'll need a bunch of that. Actually, let's just grab a stack because we're going to need some for our pistons for the one machine. And let's see, we got some oak planks. There we go. I really should make a bunch of pistons ahead of time because we keep needing more and more of them for everything. And this calls for 2, so more oak planks out. So these will be our initial setups here. We'll replace them with better and faster machines eventually once we actually can construct them. But we need these to get our initial circuits. So there we go. There's the one. Now let's get the charger. And there we go. So those are all set. Should probably go ahead and figure out where we're going to put these. And let's check on our Certus quartz crystal. There we go. Flawless budding Certus quartz. So now we just have to wait for that to grow a couple crystals for us to harvest. We don't currently have any cardboard boxes to be able to move it to a better location than where it currently is. But what we're going to do is we are going to set up down here below our storage system. We will put more storage along here at some point. But if we just do this, this should be a good place to just kind of hide all of our A2 machines. And also, we don't really need too much stuff here. I think that our main storage system is going to be just fine for our uses. And if we really need a ton of storage for something, we can probably just make a few storage drives and use those if we have to. Anything down here is going to be stuff that we're not really going to be pulling out all that often. So whatever we do need to pull out, we'll just pull out through our computer system anyway. So there shouldn't be any space issues with putting our machines down here. We'll put our whole system underneath here. We are going to have to move our ender chests, which are doing fairly well at bringing some of the stuff from our outlying areas into our storage. We may have to do something about our one for our crop farm because that one is tending to back up a little bit. But as a start, this isn't going too bad. So I'm going to do some work to rearrange how we have that set up down here and go keep an eye on our Certus quartz buds, and then I'll be right back. All right, so managed to get enough for our Certus quartz seeds. Got some extra Certus quartz as well, so that we can turn those into our fluix. So toss all those in there. That should get us enough fluix to get started and get our first set of seeds. So we're going to do that. I do want to have one of these in both of our sections here. So we're going to at least get the first ones here set up in our hydroponic beds to get those going and start collecting more of the stuff that we're going to need. And as you can see, these are going decently fast. So we should get a very nice amount of instances from that. Just have to make sure that we grab those out so that we can put these in our storage. I did already go and get the silicon ones set up just so we could start getting that stockpiling. But with those two seeds now in place, that should get us everything we need for the basics for starting our computer system here. So there we go. We now have those in our storage. Now we are going to put all of our crystals for all of this into our 1x1 storage section. And I know that it causes some problems if we use compacting drawers once we get later into the mod. But that allows us to get our matter condenser once we brush one down. We can also use some fluix essence to get dust directly. And we're going to want that early because we are going to need quite a few singularities, and we need that matter condenser to make the singularities in the first place. But now we can get our ME controller once we get our processors. And for that, we have our mysterious cube. So we got that from our wandering trader a while ago because we needed these. So normally we'd find these in meteorites, but seeing as that structure doesn't spawn in this void, we had to get it from the trader because we need these presses to get started with the mod. So I've gone and gotten everything that we need for our first few sets of processors. I'm actually just going to go ahead and speed that up a little bit so that we're not sitting here waiting constantly for everything, because we are going to need one of each of these. So we need the engineering. No, logic is gold. We need calculation, which is our diamonds, right? No, it's engineering. Engineering is the diamonds, calculation is Certus quartz. Those aren't quite as needed as much in the early stages, so I don't always remember which one is which. But there we go. There's our Certus quartz circuit crafting up. And then we need our gold for our logic. The logic circuits are probably going to be one of the ones that we use the most. Eventually, I do want to upgrade this to a circuit slicer, which works in blocks. So that'll be a little bit quicker eventually, but we do need to get there first. And we do have quite a few things to do first. So while that crafts up, we can go ahead and grab out our skystone, which is somewhere around here. There it is. I know I had a spot marked out for it. And apparently that needs to be smelted. So it's off to the smelter for us. All right, there we go. We now have our main center of our area here. So we're actually going to just kind of stick that right below our ender chest here. So that needs some power, which calls for us needing to get an energy acceptor in order to fuel that. Calls for quartz glass, Certus quartz dust, and go from there. We are definitely going to need a few more machines around here for some of the stuff that we're going to need, because we need a lot of glass for all this. And I like to actually have that prepared ahead of time so that we can just go and request it instead of going and having to run all the way to our mech setup every time we want to smelt more glass. Hopefully we have enough for right now. If we need more, we can easily just crush that down and get a little bit more, but I'd rather not have to do that if we don't have to. So we have that. We're going to need a little bit of glass for some flux cables, which we need a lot of glass for flux cables and quartz fibers, but that should get us at least the basic stuff set up. So in order to connect this into our system, we are going to need a storage bus, which is interface into pistons. Interface, we need these formation and annihilation cores, which call for logic, processors, and then flux dust. So I'm going to go and get those started and get some stuff set up here so that we can maybe start auto-crafting after we link our storage controller here into our system. So I'm going to go and get that set up and then I'll be right back. All right, so we've done a little bit of work typing around stuff underneath our storage here. And I'm quite happy with how this is going so far. So we pretty much just have one set of channels here, only using 2 of them right now. One of them goes to our storage bus, the other one connects to our energy and our crafting terminal that we have in the floor. I do need to do some work in order to get that set up so that doesn't kind of just look weird here. But we can go in here, we can say search for combs. Then we can go ahead and there we go. There's all of our gold combs. We don't have to worry about any other similar looking ones. And go from there, which is going to be super, super useful. And since everything is organized by our storage controller here, we don't have to worry about anything else. But with that, that means that we could start jumping into auto crafting here. All we really need is a bunch of calculation processes and logic processors. But before we do that, one thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and use this intro seed on our flux block here. So that'll slowly grow entro crystals, which we can use to make another seed that we're going to need. And that is what we need for these extended machine frames. What those will do is we can make, say, this crystal assembler here, which will allow us to, say, do stuff like make processors 4 at a time. It'll be a lot quicker and it'll be a lot more efficient to do that. We can also get the circuit slicer. So instead of having to put in our patterns every single time, it'll just take a block, slice into circuits, which will be very, very useful going forward. So we need to wait for that to grow in order to get that. But again, we should be able to start getting some basic crafting going and go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and craft up those circuits that we are going to need for that. It's going to be a lot of sitting around waiting here. And then I'll be right back. All right, so we've gotten everything that we are going to need for some auto crafting with this. So we have our crafting storage here, which if we go ahead and set this up right here, that should work. Gives us a little bit of crafting ability. It won't be enough for anything massive, but it is a decent starting point. Now all we need is a pattern provider and a molecular assembler. So that'll allow us just to automatically craft up a few different things once we actually have patterns, for which we are going to need a pattern encoding terminal. So we can just go ahead and stick that down here. We're probably going to move it down somewhere. That way we can actually use it a little bit better. But we have our blank pattern and we can just kind of encode some of the patterns that we are going to need a lot. So that gets us patterns, quartz glass, and we need the formulation and annihilation cores because we are going to need a few of those. And we are of course going to need stuff to transform our essences into our resources. So we can go ahead and do that. Put those in there. Now we can request those resources from our terminals. You can do that from any of them, but go up here and go and see. We do this. We can say we want 1200. We can start crafting that and that will start crafting that up. Take a little bit of time, but then we can go off and do something else and that'll work. We are going to need. We will have to upgrade this at some point, but that's what our quantum computer system is going to be for. So our next step is boosting our circuit production with the crystal assembler and the circuit slicer, and getting a few more things like the reaction chamber, which for that, we are going to need these intro infused ingots. So we're going to need intro dust, gold ingots, and lapis, which we can get from our essences. And then we just need to toss in a gold and a lapis in as well into the water, and then we should be good. So with 12 of those, let's go ahead and toss those into our little water pool. Step back, toss our lapis back in, and there we go. Serve to react. And now we can go and craft everything we need with those. So we get those, and we can kind of do that. If we do a control click here, we can see that we need to craft up what's missing, which means that we are going to need a lot more patterns because we are going to need a lot more of everything here. So with 4 of those, we can get our first extended machine frame, we can get our crystal assembler, and that's going to need its own pattern provider, its own patterns, and this is going to be a small little mess. But hey, we have automated crafting now. We can start crafting up all sorts of different things and go from there. So I'm going to go get this and the circuit slicer set up, get the patterns set up for those as well, and hopefully we don't have to make 50,000 of their pattern providers for this. And then I'll be right back. All right, so we did a little bit more than just get the circuit slicer set up. We now have a smelting factory set up for glass production, actually exclusively for glass production. We've got a reaction chamber set up. We've got an inscriber that actually has pattern providers. And we've gone and added a second pattern provider, actually an extended pattern provider, because we filled up the first one. So we can now go ahead and craft pretty much everything that we're going to need for the quantum computing CPU. So fortunately, this has a nice little maximum size quantum computer quest here that we can follow. We are waiting on some matter balls to craft up to get some of these parts, but we can go ahead and start crafting these. But once we get that, we should be able to start crafting these up. I did also go ahead and get some nether star seeds and some enderman seeds. I also turned some of our farmland into insanium farmland, just so that hopefully grows stuff a little bit faster. We've got plenty of our inferium essence to do that. But with that, that means that we do need to start getting some stuff crafting because this is going to take a while. So we need 218 quantum computer structure. So we should be able to get that at least, because that doesn't require the matter balls. So let's go ahead and put in our amount here. Looks like we got enough stuff, which is good. So we can start that. You can see that that's going to take a little bit. We can even hear our smelter downstairs. I got that all the way up to ultimate just so that we could craft more stuff at the same time. We do an auto thing that'll basically give us 9 sand every time it crafts. So that will work very, very well. And we've just been kind of filling up our little section here with everything that we need from all of this. So we just need to wait for those to craft. We need to get our matter balls to craft. They are going pretty fast. I've ended up adding in more inputs from our sink here to craft that even faster. So they are going decently fast. I have tried using our temporal pouch, and I don't think that that speeds it up at all. So it's pretty much a issue of how fast can we pump stuff into here, and we can only do that so quickly. I wonder if we get an entangle block. If we entangle that, we can pump more stuff in quickly. I'll have to try it. But for now, we have that crafting up as quickly as we can, and we just have to wait for more matter balls. So I'm going to wait for that, craft up what I can, and then I'll be right back. All right, so quite a bit of time later, a bunch of matter balls, a bunch of gold processing, a bunch of glowstone, and several trips to the end later, and we now have everything that we need for our quantum computer. So our last piece here is this quantum data entangler. This thing was pain to get because it took a bunch of materials. But we finally have one. We can finally go ahead and connect our quantum machines here. So we can put in a pipe there so we can connect this up. And waiting to do this with our machine structure here. And now all we have to do is put in these pieces here. I believe if we do this, that should work. Our entangler there and our multi-threader here. Don't believe this actually matters, but we can put in all of our accelerators here, fill in the rest of the gap. And hopefully this should work. I believe this should form a multi-block. I don't know. I've never made one of these. This would be my first time doing this. And, well, I'm kind of excited because this is a really big project. And again, I think this will do a lot of good for us for future crafting, especially once we start getting some of the more complicated tech mods. And we can just easily encode all of the processes we need for those and just take out an entire crafting tree in one step. But we've just got a few more of these here to go, and then we should be all set for getting this running. There we go. There's all of our accelerators. It looks like we might be missing one, but at this point I don't particularly care. And there we go. Our CPU is fully built. It's really bright. Guess we could kind of dig through here, but honestly I don't think it's going to matter too much as long as it works. So now we should be able to just go and autocraft basically whatever we want. We should be able to run multiple crafting things at the same time. Should see it somewhere in here show up on our CPUs. I don't remember which button that's under. But with that, I think that is probably going to be about it for today. So I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more of what is going on this island. And I will catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.